Hey. Hey everyone, thanks for having me here today. So thanks for the introduction, Paul. I'm Xavier from France, and today I will speak about GraphQL. So, well, I don't know the expression in English, but we'll continue raising hands. So first of all, I'd like to ask you several questions. Who has heard about GraphQL? Please raise your hand. Sweet. So next question, who has played with GraphQL or used it online or just, okay, less hands. Still sweet. And who uses GraphQL daily? Yeah, yeah. Awesome. So, well, the purpose of this talk is that in the weeks to come, more people will be able to raise their hand at this question. To tell you a little bit about myself, I've been using GraphQL for about 1 year now, and it really changes the way I'm designing and building web applications. And it started by hacking a little around, like I saw this news, like, oh, GraphQL looks nice. And then trying it, migrating a big open source project to that, and then starting to work with that, actually. Then contributing back to major JavaScript libraries. And I'm here to say that GraphQL is not a trend. I believe it's here to stick, and we will hear more and more about it. And the goal of this talk is to tell you why you should care about it. And to do so, I will start to demonstrate what is GraphQL. Then we will understand how it works under the hood. And then we will see how we can consume it. And I will give you some takeaways that you can get, and so you can start hacking with GraphQL. To give you a little of background, GraphQL, we have been using it without knowing it for 5 years. For instance, if you have an iPhone and you use Facebook, the Facebook app was GraphQL was built to power the Facebook app. And it has been open sourced 2 years ago, and it's great. And so full disclosure, I'm totally stoked on GraphQL. I love it. And I'm lucky enough to be able to use it at my company every day. So my company is called OkGrow. It's a dev shop based in Toronto, Canada. And so we build applications and we teach how to do so. And GraphQL just literally changed the way we think about how we build applications. And yeah, it's dope. So let's get started. What is GraphQL? GraphQL is about APIs. It's about data. And GraphQL is a query language for your API. It gives you some really neat stuff to get data. And when we think about getting data in an application, we usually think about REST. And so I will compare the REST approach with the GraphQL approach to start. So we are JSHeroes, and so the JSHeroes API is a work in progress. Maybe next year we will have a GraphQL one or a REST one. So, but no bother, we'll go with the Star Wars API. So let's imagine we are building a new app about Star Wars, and the scene takes place, so in a far, far away galaxy, but with the fifth film, the Empire one. And we want to know who is the hero, we want to know who are his friends, and what starship did the pilot. So how do we do with REST? Well, we make a request to an endpoint. And the result of this request to this endpoint is our shiny hero here, Luke Skywalker. So we get some information about it. He's smiley because he has 2 hands, still. And we get some data about friends and starships. So from the friends, we make several queries, and we know about his other friends, so Han Solo, Leia, C-3PO, and R2. We may make some of the requests to know about the starships. So to request later, we know that he piloted an X-Wing and an Imperial shuttle in this movie. And we realize that when we ask data about Han Solo, one of his friends, so we got this huge blob of JSON. And well, inside that, we found that he also piloted some starships, right? So we got the Imperial shuttle too, and the infamous Millennium Falcon. What starts to be drawn here after 9 API calls, 9, we start to get our domain model, right? It looks like a graph. And basically, so I'm consuming this screen in my application. I want to know about the heroes of the Empire movie. And well, this graph, I could have started by a starship or by another hero to know exactly the same kind of data. And GraphQL, so it could have been called TreeQL, but it's less fancy, so it's GraphQL. It's basically cutting off this graph and making a tree. So almost 10 calls for REST. How do we do with GraphQL? We cut the tree. And how many calls? Well, we will see this thanks to GraphQL. This wonderful tool is a playground to understand how we do GraphQL. And so here is a query. Here is a syntax. So I told you it's a query language. Here's the syntax. So I ask for the hero of the episode Empire. I ask for his name, Starships. Do you see well? Maybe I can zoom in a little. And friends, starships, and stuff. So I will press this little play button. Hopefully, no, I don't want you, Cloud Up. Hopefully, yeah. So you missed, we can do it again. Yeah. I get exactly in one request, with REST I did 9 requests. In one request, I get exactly the data that I want. So I get Luke, I get the starships, I get his friends, starships of his friends. And so, yeah, I get exactly the data that I wanted in one request. And maybe I'm like, oh, but I'm maybe interested in which movies did Luke was in. So I start to type. I have an autocomplete in GraphQL, which is kind of nice. I press enter. And here I am with my query. And then I realize, okay, I don't care about starships, actually. Well, still one query, still exactly the data that I want. No huge blob of JSON, no waterfall of requests. Here's GraphQL in its pure essence, I would say. And so, yeah, one call for GraphQL. This is an API. I got the data. This data could live anywhere. And this is where we start to understand, we'll start to dig into it, what is inside it. I was able to do that thanks to the API contract that define GraphQL. It is called the schema. And the schema is a source of truth. It's like, so when you build a new feature or you are with your colleagues, like on starting a new product, you go to the whiteboard, start to draw circles, arrows, yeah, this entity has a relation with this list, or blah, 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 and you start to, yeah, you map your domain model, right? And, well, with all these arrows and stuff, this can be translated somehow into types. So we had an introduction to TypeScript and stuff, and also with the forms, we saw some, how useful can be forms. And this is how a schema file would look like, for instance, in our application, where we say, okay, I want this query. It looks like this. I want with some types, so maybe just zoom out a little. And so we get all this stuff, and for instance, we see that our query hero here returns a type character. And this type character, I just build it by saying, okay, it's a mix of all the types, some scalar ones, like ID or string, and some of the types. So basically in GraphQL, you make query and mutations. A query is, could make a parallel with a GET request, or like a read operation in a CRUD base. And mutations are like a create, update, or delete things. And so far so good. Okay, you have a schema, that looks nice, but how do I get data, right? And this is where resolvers came in. Resolvers mean, how do I get from my schema data? And resolvers are just basic functions that can link to any kind of data sources. A MySQL database, a Mongo database, some endpoint somewhere, some server somewhere, whatever kind of backend you want, just name it. And this simple function is really like, how do I map from the schema, or where I am in the schema compared to my query? How do I map, and how do I resolve a data source? So for instance, here I show you how to resolve maybe a hero, and how I want to resolve the starships. One is some kind of maybe a NoSQL database, and the other one is like an endpoint somewhere. And so don't care about like the fancy stuff that is around the parameters and stuff. I would be happy to answer that later if you want. But the thing here to remember is like, from the schema and how I tell my schema to get data, I create a GraphQL server. And as the schema is strongly typed, I can just bind this GraphQL server to a single endpoint and just send queries to it and let my server understand what I want. So, okay, list. So yeah, you are thinking, okay, GraphQL looks nice. Okay, now a list of bullet points about the benefits of GraphQL. So if you want to go to graphql.org, you will have the same things with awesome schemas. The thing here, the takeaways here, is that you get exactly what you want, no overfetching. no waterfall of requests, type system, ensuring the security and you know exactly what you will ask for, powerful developer tools like GraphQL and many other things, and yeah, good stuff. So here's my query. I can resolve it based on the types and stuff, and this is the queries that I would have in my application for this screen about Luke Skywalker. And okay, so how do I send it to my server now? Basically, you can just do it with just a simple HTTP request. You use fetch or request or whatever you like, and you get back the result, and you can consume it in your application. The thing here is that we build complex applications, right? And we need powerful tooling behind it. And so I'd like to introduce you, now that we have seen the server, how it works with the client, thanks to GraphQL clients. A GraphQL client, so I picked the two major ones in the ecosystem, one built by Facebook and one built by the community. So Relay has been built by Facebook and open source at the same time as GraphQL 2 years ago, and got released. The 1.0 version got released, I believe, so it was at React Europe, so a few weeks ago. And the Apollo client, on the other hand, got released a 1.0 version 2 in March, I believe. And the thing is, really, like, in every kind of frameworks and stuff, pick the things that fits your needs. Like, Relay has been built by Facebook for Facebook, and we may not have all the needs that Facebook have. And Apollo, on the other hand, has been built to be accessible and flexible and easy to hack, and make lowering the barrier to entry to GraphQL in front-end applications. So I'm more comfortable with the Apollo tools, so I will explain the benefits of a GraphQL client based on the Apollo tools, with a list of points that actually Lee Byron, the creator of GraphQL, explained, speaking of Relay, so they really share many things in common. First of all, a GraphQL clients provide you caching. So if we take the example of this screen where we see Luke, and we may move to another screen where we see the entire galaxy, when we come back to Luke, we don't want to make another request. We are expecting that we get the information right away. And, well, this is done thanks to caching, thanks to your GraphQL client that is storing your information and give it back to you for easier consumption. Then we have consistency. So earlier there was this question about the Death Star and if types would have saved it. Like, let's imagine, so I'm on my Star Wars application and it's linked to the movie I'm watching, and at this moment, like, the Death Star explodes. Well, I want, if I see that, okay, I make an update, so in my screen I get this thing exploding, but if I come back to the hero like Luke, and we may have a list of achievements, so still have 2 hands, and maybe we have Death Star explosion. If we have this piece of information coming into our UI, we want it to be updated everywhere we are using it. So it's consistency. Your application is consistent. Then we have responsiveness. So actually, yeah, I could speak about the hand of Luke again, and like he got cut his hand, and we don't wait for the network for the update, but maybe let's take a more practical example. So I believe you use Facebook, you use Twitter, you use GitHub. All these services are using GraphQL, by the way. And when you make an issue, when you close an issue, when you favorite a tweet or answer a comment, or even on Messenger, when you type something, you get the result right away, right? You're not waiting for the network. So GraphQL clients help you to bring this responsiveness in your applications by doing some optimistic UI patterns and stuff like this, so your users have the best experience possible. And so we got to talk about Angular, we spoke about Elm, I personally love React. So it's not true for Relay. Relay is focused on React because, well, Facebook built React and they built tools for themselves, or the broader community, but focused on that. And Apollo tools, well, we have a really nice integration, so with React, with Vue, with Angular, with Ember too, and many other Vue layers, and it integrates really well. So if you do some React stuff, you may be familiar with the concept of higher order component. So the React Apollo library provides a really handy higher-order component called originally GraphQL, and where you pass it a query or a mutation, some options, and it's painless. It's really easy to use. So here are my list of features of a GraphQL client, and there is another one. So actually, this presentation is built with React, and there is so we're speaking of dev tools earlier. There is a really nice dev tool for Chrome, which is called Apollo, where you have this graphical embed. You can see what queries are actually watching by, so to help consistency and caching stuff. And I can inspect my store where I see features and some other stuff. So in this graphical playground, I'm going to just run a mutation, which is this add feature, where we can see that I just added a new feature. So it's developer effectiveness. And but as I'm in the playground, my store. Sorry? Oh, sure. So I just ran a mutation that got me some results, and but my store didn't get updated. And the thing is that when I zoom, I cannot scroll. So I have a little button in my application to trigger this mutation in real life. And so I don't know if you have seen the flicking effect, but here I got these new things, which is developer effectiveness, and here it wasn't there before. So I can now speak about developer effectiveness. Especially with Apollo tools, yeah, it's a pleasure to hack it. It's a pleasure to, okay, I have these patterns in my applications, like infinite. So I have several lists, and I'm doing infinite scrolling, or I got this button which has kind of a Boolean effect, like follow and follow, like and like, or whatever. And as I would abstract, so React pattern, components paradigm maybe tends to be reusable. Well, with your queries or mutations, you can also go the reusable way, I would say. And with stuff like pieces of queries that you can reuse, it's called fragments, or with actually building your own tools on top of GraphQL or the libraries, so either the Apollo client, the React Apollo thing, Angular Apollo, whatever. So we got this list of things, and yeah, I would recommend to use a GraphQL client. It really solves many pains, and it's more easy for us to do. I can't advocate more, but like the ecosystem around GraphQL is really great, and it starts from the community that has been built around. We see many people all around the world just trying GraphQL, implementing this in their companies. We had the first European conference about GraphQL a few weeks ago. We see meetups everywhere, and everyone is talked about it. I believe it's for a good reason. And we also have plenty of tools, and not only in the JavaScript ecosystem, even if like most of the tools, like, well, maybe not most, it's just a BS. I love JavaScript, and I see many good tools around there. But we have like, so yeah, community and dev tools in the ecosystem is great. And I would recommend you to just have a look, knock at the door, and see if you like it, because you may stick around then. In a nutshell, what we get by using GraphQL is an easier developer life. So I can query any kind of front-end device, like any kind of front ends, and I can chat with any kind of backend in a simple way, effective way, and it just goes smoothly. And so now you may be wondering, okay, that's cool, GraphQL, but I'm doing my stuff on my own way, in my own application. And the thing is that, well, if you need to convince your boss or your manager, you can tell him on the business side, the business value. If your life is more easier, we will make more money somehow, or we will reduce costs. And in the end, I believe that if we are here today, we are driven by some kind of passion around maybe JavaScript and programming in general. And so yeah, hacking around with GraphQL for about 1 year, I don't want to code any REST endpoints anymore, or consume any REST endpoints. And if I have so, I'm building a GraphQL server to with my life. This is maybe over-engineered, but everyone has this. So yeah, another thing about, so if we look at this schema, we have front-end and back-end. And I don't know if you, well, you may, I wasn't until recently, and when I discovered that, I was like, oh, wow, mocking data. Like maybe when you're running tests or stuff with GraphQL. So let's get back to the point we were at the whiteboard, and we say, okay, we need this kind of data. This will be a string. This will be a list of numbers. This will be this kind of types, I don't know what. You can tell, okay, I have this schema, and I can mock it with fake data. So you usually use it for tests, but you can actually use it to build your application. Front-end folks will make queries to a mocked server and get instantly responses. And back-end folks will be able to, well, okay, we know we need this kind of stuff. We will implement the databases or the stuff on the back end. I'm more a front-end guy, but like stuff on the back end. And you parallelize work. You parallelize work, and it's, yeah, goes faster, and it's easier. And lastly, so okay, and so now you know to convince your boss. I may have sparkled some interest in you about GraphQL, and the thing is, okay, but yeah, on which project can I implement GraphQL? The thing is that you can implement it on any project. This is, yeah. The thing is, next components that you will refactor, or next endpoints that you need some work, or new features that you are going to build, you can put this little GraphQL server or GraphQL client somewhere and just build it with that. If you like it, it may grow some space, but it can really live aside it. And so if we think as our application as a cake, well, you can just take a piece or make it grow and just implement this new part of it with GraphQL. So GraphQL is incrementally adoptable, and I would say it's a piece of cake to do it. This talk wouldn't have been what it is without these folks who have helped me. Like I asked them, how would you introduce GraphQL to someone? And they really give me hints. And so I definitely recommend to follow them on Twitter. They do awesome stuff, different companies, and yeah, they're really cool. They are GraphQL heroes, and I hope you will be able to be a GraphQL hero for someone at some point, spreading the word about it. I'm Xavier, Xav_CZ on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Which was the best use case for GraphQL? Would it work better with a NoSQL type of DB with any type? So, which was the best use case for GraphQL? So I don't know exactly the word in English. I believe it's the BS. So as I'm stuck, I would say everything. Like, don't use REST anymore. Like, GraphQL is better than REST. That's just my opinion. Make your own. But you can use it for anything. Like, when you need to involve data, you may want it. So actually, like, I'm working on a little project. Like you will see, well, you don't see it, but so I've made an animated SVG, and I'm actually feeding this SVG with some data, and it comes from GraphQL. You can use it for everything, and but in a real-world application, you would use it. I would recommend when you have several kind of backends to use it with that. How do you send back specific HTTP status? Yeah, so when you make a request to your server. The request is kind of parsed, like understanding what you want and stuff, and this is where, so I personally use most of the time Express, but you can use whatever you want. And well, this is where, like, if this doesn't work, you send back you throw an error with like, okay, to make this query you need to be authenticated. So you would do it at the resolver level or at the server level. How do you hot in GraphQL? One, hiding certain attributes, two, hiding objects with certain attributes. Nice question. So on one hand, so when the request hit, you would pass some headers, like the token of the current user or stuff like this. And you will perform before going to the resolvers. You will say, hey, is this token valid? Okay, I got someone, and maybe this someone has some informations like admin rights or permissions. And when the resolver will then be resolved, you have access to the context of the request. So you know which person have rights or not. And on the well, the question is gone, but on the second part of the question, filtering attributes is made automatically. Like I ask for name, like my database returned 5 fields. I just only ask for 1. Well, it keeps. Cheers. How hard it is to integrate GraphQL into an existing code base using Redux? Actually, it is pretty easy. So you have the provider and the store. React Apollo provides you an Apollo provider, and which actually the store that I showed you is actually based on the Redux store. So they may want to get rid of it at some point for the Apollo folks. But so I would recommend to go with Apollo. It's the easiest way. So it's answer pretty easy. Yes, you can. I would say it's a piece of cake again. It just needs you to do a little leap of faith, a little step, to say, hey, how does it fit in my current workflow? Does it fit with my colleagues? And yeah. GraphQL versus Firebase. I only tried on Firebase. Firebase, as far as I understand, is like doing some real-time stuff. With GraphQL, you can also do some real-time stuff thanks to GraphQL subscriptions. If you want to talk about it, I would be pleased to do so. But yeah, also, well, Firebase is proprietary things, and GraphQL is open source, and it works with different languages, client-server stuff. How do you debug GraphQL behavior? Can you talk about some client-server implementations that comes with ways to debug as well? So I would say, like, so you have some dev tools. Either like if you use Apollo, either the Redux ones or the Apollo dev tools. Going to GraphQL also, like if you want to debug what happens from client to server, like do my server response well, you can use this tool. And on the client side, well, you, as most of the time, so it returns a promise. You do some try catch and understand how it's going on, and you write test also. How does GraphQL deal with a relational database? It deals pretty well. Actually, yeah, GraphQL makes relation between any kind of backend. And if you only deal with GraphQL, so you may have, so I don't know, like SQLize or stuff like this, and well, it just fits well. And then you may hit at some point some performance issues, because the joins are no, I don't know, well, especially with NoSQL database, but you have tooling to help you prevent that. Do browsers have a limit for the query length? I don't know if browsers have one, but servers, I don't know, like, I know there is a limit of like the size of the strings that you can pass or something like this, but you may be able to configure it on the server. I know, and I heard about some folks doing, for files, for instance, if you want to send a file, you can stream it and stuff like that. But I'm really not knowledgeable on this subject. Why GraphQL presenters use pink in the color slide? Actually, it's I believe it's Lee Byron, the creator. So the guy in the middle here, even his profile picture on GitHub is pink. I don't know, it's a color of GraphQL. And so I have a T-shirt which is written in pink. Ask me about GraphQL. I'm a working corner, so we don't have GraphQL corner, but and tomorrow I will have a pink T-shirt. So yeah, even more pink. How do you handle complex join? So yeah, there is this tool called Data Loader. I would be really pleased to speak about you. So Alex, who asked the question, come to me and I will explain you. Or it's like it does the joins for you, somehow, I would say. How do you scale GraphQL servers? I personally never had to. I know that you can use this GraphQL data loader things that does caching and also batching. So instead of like I have a list of stuff, like you will batch all your queries, and also what you can do is I forgot what I was about to say, but yeah, you have several ways. And actually, so if we think about Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, Shopify, Pinterest, all these folks, well, they do it at scale. So you can. So is also you can, yeah. I'm not really knowledgeable, but I can point you where get the answer of this question. So how hard would it be to change an existing project to use GraphQL? Piece by piece, and it's not that hard. From the view layer or from your whatever your backend is, it can be done. Dr. Xavier, where did I come from? So, oh my, oh sweet. Yeah, you come from my backend somehow, no? Is there a way to subscribe to events to get data in a reactive manner? Yeah, it's called GraphQL subscriptions. It has been, so actually it's the Apollo guys who tried it, then sent it back to Facebook, it got accepted, and I believe it's also being influenced by all the folks who are doing observable stuff and Angular stuff. They are really, so yeah, you can do it. It's cool.
Okay,
yeah,
the last two questions, because it's a topic that triggers a lot of interest. But
so yeah, I'm a working corner, so come to me after. Can it be used for real-time data? Yeah, GraphQL subscriptions. How do you delete a resource typically with GraphQL? Well, I send a mutation with a proper naming. I know naming is hard, but with a proper naming, and then I just make the delete. And also, you have this question can be interpreted in another way. You don't have versioning. I don't know if you have already ever versioned APIs. In GraphQL, you don't version. You deprecate fields and create new stuff. Facebook has the same schema for 5 years. Never did another version.
Thank you.